Talk. I'm Carla Garrick. I'm your host. And as you can see, I'm alone in the studio today after a swath of guests and a little cheating with travel and some old podcasts that we had broadcast for you guys over the last few weeks. But here I am back again. I gotta tell you, I don't know if it's because it's bleak outside or kind of raining or slightly cold, like that just full in the air, but I really wasn't in the mood for coming here. So I'm just gonna pat myself on the shoulder and be like, sometimes you have to check the boxes. Also, hi to my viewers here on X and on Facebook, where I am streaming live for day 232 of my living experiment, which is 232 days in a row where I often didn't feel like doing something, and yet I jumped on here to do it. As my father might say, but why? And perhaps that is the million-dollar question. But to be honest, for me, it was really an issue of setting a goal that seemed really stretched, really hard, and then sort of deciding and seeing if I can do it, right? Doing something every day for a whole year will reestablish certain neural programming in your mind. If you actually set and meet those benchmarks, you start to excel in new and interesting ways. And having done that with alcohol and my sobriety from back in 2017, I was curious to see what are different new ways I might be able to do this so that I can teach you guys how to make your lives better as well. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown on what we'll be talking about today. I'm going to give you a little summary about what happened at the Ron Paul birthday bash. It is indeed today, I believe, Ron Paul's actual 90th birthday. And if that's the case, if it is today, I did see a little tweet go out from Rand Paul earlier this morning, then happy birthday to Dr. Paul for today. But 2 weeks ago, we were in Texas for the 90th birthday soiree done by Young Americans for Liberty. And that was an interesting trip. So I'll fill you guys in a little bit about that. We will be talking about the 8 pillars of health, what they are, how you can get them, why you should be doing all these things, and how you too can hack your life for better health. Because once you feel healthy, a lot of these perceived problems that people carry actually disappear. Because it turns out a lot of noise in your noggin is the reason you feel dysregulated or depressed or unhappy or anxious or whatever, fill in the blank for whatever you're feeling that isn't a positive. And human health and working towards human health by developing the right habits is the way to diminish those things that are taking away from your life. If we get time, I am going to lean into this executive order by Trump about how they're going to make the government efficient in ways we might not want. And then maybe talk a little bit about UBI, that's Universal Basic Income, and abundance, and what the AI seems to think is coming down the pike for all of us pure humans. So thanks for joining me today. If you're watching this later or online, thanks for doing that too. If you ever want to reach me, you can reach me at carla@carlagarrick.com. All right, what was Texas like? Except hot, 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 hot. I'm like, why do people live there? I would not be able to live there. And if the power ever goes out and there was no air conditioning, I don't genuinely know how anyone could live there. Very hot, very humid. There were about 15 to 20 Free Staters and Liberty lovers from New Hampshire who went down for the event. There were probably over 1,000 people there. It was a really fun day. It was like from 2 in the afternoon to 10 o'clock at night. We had VIP tickets because the Free State Project partially sponsored some of the event. So our executive director, Eric Brakey, actually interviewed or did a I think he was the interviewer. I wasn't there for that part. Talked to Justin and Manch on stage, so that's pretty exciting. And once the video's out, I will share that on my social media. And then at 8 p.m. that evening, the great Dr. Paul came out. But really, the whole day was sort of focused on why we love this like old cranky old man is how they used to call him, right? Or the curmudgeon, or honestly, he was always the politician who came second, where they literally sometimes would not even cover him in the mainstream media news. And that was one of those aha moments for many of us when we realized, wow, the propaganda machine is much more robust than we knew. By way of example, Ron Paul actually came second in the Democrat and the Republican primaries here in New Hampshire. And when they did the results on one of the news shows, they literally had number 1 and number 3 and left out Dr. Paul as number 2 because they were so afraid of his ideas, which, you know, good ideas are bulletproof is the way they describe it, right? What does that mean? It means that if you have sound ideas that people can fully grasp and understand, then you can truly sway politics in a way that the establishment and the regime actually fears. And what were his 2 main fearful for bad guys policies? It was sound money and anti-interventionism, so anti-war, really, right? Sound money, what do we mean by that? So Dr. Paul had been in politics for a long time, right? But there were all these like old timers, I guess, one wave older than Gen X, so the boomers were all quite, any thinking person who understands economics was quite upset when Nixon took America off the gold standard back in 71, 2, 3, one of those. Anyway, but off the gold standard meant that the government was now unfettered by financial constraints that you and I have to have. If we have a household budget, you can't spend more than you have, right? And then they give you credit, and then you spend a little more, but you should pay off your credit cards every month. And then you stop doing that, and suddenly you're getting another credit card to pay this credit card, and you're hoping the rate on this credit card will counteract the rate on this credit card. And then if you're the United States of America, after 100 years, you wipe your eyes and you realize that you're in a lot of wars because you had to export your inflation and that your money is worthless. And so to the young folks out there, the millennials and the Gen Zs who rightfully feel deeply frustrated and done in, you are being done in. You are being done in by your government that is stealing your money. A US dollar from 1913, when they implemented the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation and has nothing to do with the federal government other than a sneaky kind of backdoor relationship, they have destroyed the value of the US dollar by almost 100%. And all the money printing that's taking place, and that is the reason why your eggs keep getting more expensive. The other thing, of course, that Dr. Paul talked about was blowback. This was back with the Afghani and the Iraq wars. Talked about how we shouldn't be building all these bases all over the world, how America should not be the policeman of the world, how we should rather focus on our backyard and the issues and the poverty and the problems we see here in our own country. And that, to some extent, is sort of a rallying cry that was adopted by the Trump administration and people who talk about America first. And I gotta say, I'm gonna feel cautiously optimistic that Trump is indeed going to usher in peace, both in the Ukraine and hopefully in the Middle East, although that one's looking pretty sketchy right now. But I saw a great little photo on a social media feed this morning where it was a juxtaposition of two photos. The one was Trump sitting with his arms folded behind the Oval Office with like Angela Merkel kind of up in his face and all these European leaders kind of like over the desk. And the new photo was actually also in the Oval Office with Trump looking very comfortable behind the desk and all the leaders kind of sitting around, and everyone looked dignified and as if they were perhaps going to practice diplomacy. So, as a little side note here with the diplomacy stuff, I thought it was very interesting. I was, as I do, and I save all these things on my website, carlagarrick.com, so you can always go find whatever, interesting or ludicrous thing you've heard me say, especially my discussions with the AI when I find them interesting for whatever reason. Sometimes I'm just like, it's 4:30 in the morning and I'm like, hey, I was wondering about this, or how does this work, or what about this, right? Or help me come up with a story about this. I do save a lot of those on my website, partly, I think, as an academic exercise, so that if we start to see changes happening in the truth-seeking of the AIs, which is a little sketch as it is, then we will at least be able to vet different times and different answers and those kinds of things. So lots of questions about big pharma and those kinds of things. But in the discussion about truth-seeking, I gotta say, the AI still has a little bit of work to do there. So observationally, I kind of think that the TSA's been told to stand down a little bit. I don't know who's been out there flying recently, but everyone knows I have a big fat beef with the TSA. And if I have my druthers, I would love to see them abolished. I think as libertarians, that is the issue we should be pushing for the midterms. I'm excited to see people, of course, talk about the crypto hostages, Ian Freeman, Roger Ver, Storm, I forget his name. I still need to go learn his story. But the people that kind of came after Ross Ulbricht, right? So people are talking about, can we get another pardon? Can we, sort of leverage things there? And I'm hopeful we can. But I think we need a big, hard, uniting issue. And I think abolishing the TSA is that issue. Why? There's already a bill in from Mike Lee out of Utah. And even Canada has privatized security at their airports. So if our commie cousins to the north can have private security, I'm pretty sure we should have it too. So why did I say I felt like the TSA stood down? Well, for one, I opted out of my biometrics. I just kind of casually said they had caught me the first time and I wasn't prepared, so I kind of, as they do, kind of just got caught up in it. But that day that we were flying, I was like, hey, what happens if I just say no to the biometrics? And the guy's like, nothing. And he just scanned my boarding pass, scanned my passport, and that was it, and that was fine. Several Free Staters actually flew without a real ID. So they just used a New Hampshire issued driver's license that doesn't have all the bells and whistles and extra tracking devices on it. No problem for that. For the first time in forever, we could keep our shoes on like grown-ups. I mean, wow. And, when you go through the security theater, you realize how ludicrous it actually is that they're just doing these things, and that from day to day, yesterday, this much liquid in your hair, gel was like a terrorist threat, and today it's fine, which just actually shows you how ridiculous and nonsense-filled these policies are. So, I think, all things told, it definitely felt very hands-off, Had no problems here in Boston. Actually flew out of Boston, and I was not looking forward to that. But again, no problems. Flying out of Texas, Houston, back to here, also no problems. So I'm going to give my TSA experience this time. I won't give it thumbs up, but I'll give it it wasn't the worst one, and no one stuck any fingers in body parts that I did not consent to. So that is great. All right, quickly, let's talk about the 8 pillars of health. And I'm going to teach it to you this way because I saw a cheater thing on Instagram and it stuck in my mind, so maybe this will stick in your minds. But the acronym is New Start. And I believe that's actually from some school or course or college or something. I'm sorry, I don't have the attribution, but it is a really easy, quick way to remember stuff. So if you are in any state of either unalignment, which means your words, thoughts, and deeds are not matching up, which means you have cognitive dissonance or something's wrong, so you have loops in your mind, or you're anxious, or you're depressed, or whatever those things are, that is unhealth. And your unhealth, your mental state, actually manifests from your physical state. So when we're talking about human health on a cellular, mitochondrial level, then these are the 8 things you should be working on. So 1, new start, right? So N, nutrition. How are you feeding your body? Are you eating processed foods? For the love of God, stop, because it is really, really bad for you. There are all these chemicals, we don't know how they work. If you are trying to regain your health and nothing has worked, cut out the junk food, the processed foods, and just start cooking from scratch. And if you don't know how to cook, cook bacon and eggs. Everyone can learn how to do that and eat that for a month, and you'll already be on a path towards better health. N, nutrition. E, exercise. We all know it. People rarely do it. Women my age, people in their 50s, we should be doing a lot of strength training. I too don't do it as often as I should, but I really am going to commit to that. And even a little bit of jump training. What does that mean? If you're out on a trail, jump on the rock, jump off, jump on a log, jump off, kind of make it playful as you go. W, so N-E-W. Water, hydrating, making sure you are always hydrated because our cells are primarily water and they need water in order for your whole body to function correctly. S is, well, that's interesting. I literally cannot read my handwriting, so I don't know which one that is, so I'll have to go back to that one. T, we have temperance. There are 2 T's. So new start and T for temperance. What does that mean? You know how people talk about it? Maybe you even heard your grandma or maybe your mom told you this, everything in moderation. And that is a good rule of thumb. But unfortunately, we live actually in an era of wealth in a way where when you think about it, all these obese people are actually storing, they're like batteries that are storing way too much glucose because of a form of abundance. Now, it is not abundance of health, it is abundance of chronic disease, but the way to counter that is with temperance. And I would say temperance with regard to alcohol, with regard to drug use, with regard to lifestyle choices. No one wants to hear it, but it's the truth. A is air. So think about how you breathe, what you're taking in, where you're walking. Of course, here up in New Hampshire, we're so lucky because our air is actually good for us, including the phytoncides that are expressed by firs, pines, and cedars. So literally the air in New Hampshire, if you get out in the woods, is anti-cancerous. It's good for you. So just go walk in the woods and you'll probably feel better. R, rest. Oh, you know what the other S was sunshine. I was like, what's such a need? I was like, saccharin? No, it was sunshine. Your cells, your skin need sunshine. Actually, when we were in Texas, we went to the beach and I was like, I am going to put on very little sunblock because I wanted to get that sun and in fact did not actually burn. And then last but not least, so we have nutrition, exercise, water, new, start, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, sleep, rest, so important. I know people think self-care is selfish, but it's not. If you want to learn one word that is going to serve you in your life, learn to say no. Stop with the I have a duty and take care of yourself first. And last but not least on that list of new start is trust at the end. Trust brings me to a little bit of a spiel about alignment as the optimal path for human health. So one of the things I enjoy doing with the AI is really kind of being like, yo, this is what I think. What do you think? Now, I understand the LLMs are trained to tell us what we want to hear. That's probably partly a good thing, partly a bad thing. I think we're still figuring out this landscape. But I did ask it this morning whether aligning your thoughts, words, and deeds. So what does that mean? That means that you are authentically in alignment and that you have personal integrity, because what you think and what you say are the same things. You're not lying, you're trying to be truthful, and all of those things. And so the AI said, alignment of words, thoughts, and deeds implies a state where one's internal beliefs and intentions are consistently expressed through speech and actions. This coherence, right? So we're talking about either you're fragmented, which is the statist way of being. And the clearest way I can explain to you guys to think about it is, I say it all the time, I've heard other people say it, it is a statist construct, is, oh, which hat am I wearing, right? So when you hear yourself talking about yourself that way, that is where fragmentation is taking place and where the rules have made it so that you think you can behave in a different way or in a questionable way or in a gross way because it's kind of allowed. But if we're trying to transcend our rulers, i.e. transcend your rules by becoming self-autonomous and becoming a fully formed human being who's in charge of yourself with agency and free will, then you want to not be fragmented and you want to be trying to get to this place. Now, a really good example, actually from the Ron Paul bash. So I ran into Keith Knight, who is at the Libertarian Institute with Scott Horton. And Keith and I don't know why, we've just always had this weird bond where we don't really know each other that well, but whenever we run into each other, we just have really intense conversations, real ones, right? I would call them meat and no potatoes conversations, because he too gave up carbs and, Anyway, so we were literally talking about my mom having passed away, his mother had passed away. We're just having a conversation and I was feeling, slightly emotional. In fact, I had the same dress on. Maybe that was a little, triggering. But we were talking about quitting alcohol, how I'd quit alcohol and why. And he said, what was the reason? And I hadn't really talked about my journey in a while, and then I've got to go back and file it away. It was like when Nick Gillespie, we were doing Reason interviews, and he was like, why do you love Dr. Paul? And I was like, oh man, where are my talking points? I was like, sound money and end to war, but I had a moment of panic. So with Keith, when he asked me why, what was the reason or what was the clincher for quitting alcohol, I actually, I paused for a while and then I said, I was tired of negotiating with myself. So what does that mean? That means something like, and maybe this will resonate with people. If you decide, oh, I want to exercise more or I want to drink less. So I'm going to take the drink less example in this case, right? So before I quit drinking, I knew I was drinking too much, and I would frequently tell myself, you should drink less. So maybe that afternoon I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to go day drinking and schedule a lunch with a friend, and then tonight I will just have 2 glasses of wine. And then that doesn't happen. So you chew, you pour a third one, you're like, well, I'm in it now. So then you get the fourth one. Right. We've all been there, whether it's alcohol or a cupcake, crack, whatever your poison is, pick your poison. It's about the loop I'm describing here. So when you get to a point where you are so exhausted about telling yourself what excuse you have to come up with in order to explain away why you failed. Oh, I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine. Well, I had 4. Now you're going to bed. Maybe you feel a little bad. Maybe you push it away. Maybe you just shove it into some space where your body starts to ache after a while. So what is that? That means you're not aligned with your words and your deeds and your thoughts, because your thoughts are saying, I should drink less, and your deeds are clearly showing you're not doing it, right? So as we navigate this life, the more mindful you can be about trying to bring those things into alignment, your thoughts, words, and deeds, the more clarity you're going to have, and probably the more success you're going to have over time. So, I think we're going to run up against the clock in not too long. But here's what Grok had to say about it. So, there's alignment fosters trust, reduces internal conflict, and promotes psychological well-being. So if you actually find that these things aren't in alignment, you could actually be suffering from low self-esteem, because maybe somewhere in your mind you kind of know, oh, I'm dysregulated and I'm doing these weird things. So definitely something to think about and to explore. I'm going to leave you guys again with New Start: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust. Are we going to have a future with all kinds of abundance? I would like to think so. Wouldn't that be better than whatever this dystopian nightmare is we seem to be trying to manifest? Whether it will be an era of abundance or some kind of dystopian future is a question I will leave up to us for next week with this little cliffhanger. Trump gave Executive Order 14158, and this one implements and establishes the President's Department of Government Efficiency, and they are trying to make some kind of mega database, which is going to either make government, well, not either, which is going to make government more efficient. And the question I think I will leave everyone with today is, do we want a more efficient government? This is the question, because if we trust them, if their words and deeds are aligned, maybe. But here's the reality. When you ask Grok and it gives you the exceptions to when these words, deeds are not aligned, they are all government examples or corporation examples where they are excusing fraud and lying in context, which is just a big get out of jail free card for all of them. All right, that's what I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Manch Talk here from the Manchester Public Television Access Television Station studio. And I will be back here maybe solo next week. Otherwise, Lori Ortolano will be joining me either next week or the week after that. Until then, peace out, guys.